just said your family was known for wearing Pittsburgh Steelers stuff out west. Is that what you just said?
So the influence of my family,
Okay.
our city, because
Okay.
and this was a little bit before me. A lot of people from death row would come out and kick it in my city with my family. And so we have had great influence, I'll say, on the musical side of things. And so, like, the reason, like I'm saying, you see so many people that wear Pittsburgh stuff out west is, I'm not going to take full credit, but my family definitely had a large hand in that. You know what I mean? And so, just hearing
Yeah.
those stories, it's always dope. My mom and I were talking about it the other day. And she was one of the ones that they, would come and my mom, like, it was just crazy to think about how they would come through like that, our city, and kick it with the family and so on and so forth. But yeah, so I got some ties.
Wow.
I got some ties.
So we could possibly see Brea Miles on Death Row Gospel.
Look, if it happens, it happens. That would be dope. I know he's working on something like that. That would be dope.
No, he did. He released the album. Snoop released the album called Death Row Gospel with a Death Row Gospel choir.
That is crazy. Like, Snoop, you know what I mean? that would be crazy. I'll bless the mic and give them the gospel. You already know. So yeah.
Got you. Okay, so as a teenager, what was your life like? Was you just always on go? Like, was you always like performing, or like what was that life like for you as a teenager growing up between Pittsburgh and Virginia? And how was that dynamic for you? Because you're growing up up north and then coming to like a city that's kind of southern, but it's not really southern. You know what I'm saying? I've heard a lot about Richmond. So how was those experience?
It was dope for me. You know what I mean? Because my family is huge. Like, there's huge pockets of my family, literally from New York, Pittsburgh, Virginia, Atlanta. You guys are going to see and that's just a small portion of my family that's in Atlanta, that's in the video. My family is huge. So I got probably at least 200 or so people that's in my family that just live in Atlanta. You feel what I'm saying? And so, like, my family is huge. So for me, growing up, very heavy on the family, very heavy on that connection. Like, I be trying, I can't really say too much, but my family is a tremendous part of my identity. Like I said, a tremendous part of who I am, you know what I mean? And we're very, not arrogant, but we're very proud, and who we are, where we come from, and what we've been able to accomplish. Like, I've had family members who are signed to Motown Records. I got family, my great grandfather played for Ella Fitzgerald and
wow.
B.B. King. And so, like, we're very musical. I got a lot of people in my family who are doing well for themselves, who are professional athletes, playing NBA, playing football. And so, like, it's just like we be working,
Wow.
And so for me, growing up between the two, it was fun. And we just very, go get it type of mentality. And for me, like, I just learned a lot. I was the kid that, you have to graduate by first you be in the backseat. And if you're fortunate enough, you get to come up to the front. So I got to grow up around a lot of like G's, a lot of business people, and just see, both sides of the tracks, the good, the bad, the people who are legit, the people who aren't legit. And I got to learn from both. And then the Lord saved me. So, like, I've always been on go. I got saved, and the Lord was like, yeah, you're gonna use this gift. You're gonna be like the first person in your family to use the gift of music to proclaim me, to proclaim my name, and build the church and build what I called you to build. So for me, I just always been about kingdom business. I always been about family. I always been about building the people of God in the church. I just believe in that. So yeah.
Got you. So so this is a question. What was Brea like pre-Christ? What was Brea like pre-Christ? And then what made you say, Jesus, take it all, I surrender to you? What was those two dynamics for you in your life?
That's a great question. You either love me. I mean, I feel like it's like it is now. It just was me without any filter. Like, being in the industry, like, I've learned how to just watch. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I always have, and that's something that I learned, growing up with my family. I remember my aunt, she came and took me around the city one time in Pittsburgh, and she was like, don't go here, don't go there, watch out for this kind of people. This person is slick. So, like, my family always put me up on game and showed me who to watch out for. So coming into the industry, like, I always just had more of an insight. So pre-Christ, it just was exactly like it is now. It just was, I had no filter. I really did not care if somebody came at me sideways. You already know what it was. And it was very, very limited, the people who felt the need to assert themselves in that way because of who my family was or who my family is. So like a lot of people just really, you know, they didn't mess with me like that. They didn't really try me like that because they understood, like, leave her alone type of situation. And she could hold her own, you know what I mean? And so, you know, pre-Christ, like I said, I love my family. You know, if we were friends, you know, you became a part of the family type of situation. And, you know, I just was all about family, all about building, all about getting to it. You know, I rapped before I knew the Lord. So it was mainstream.
Okay.
Just, you know, and it was for a short stint. It's because the Lord saved me. You know, he was like, oh no, she figuring out that she can actually do music. Let me pull her in and get her saved. And so I hope I answered that question. But I was, you know, I had fun. I was a regular kid. You know, we did crazy stuff, popping out on the highway and, you know, parking the car on the highway for seconds at a time and rapping real quick to see who could rap the fastest before a car pulled up. It was a lot of cars, you know. We were just crazy. We had fun, you know what I mean? You know, we were like untouchable in our minds, you know, type of thing. So yeah, but I had a good time.
Yeah. And what was that moment when you said, okay, I'm gonna surrender to the Lord? When did he grab your heart? Was it an incident that made it happen, or was it stuff coincided that happened that made you go, okay, I need to change for the Lord? And it sounded like you were younger when you did that. So what was that like? Like even being a young Christian amongst your friends, you know?
Yeah, you know what ended up happening was, like, for me, I got invited to church. And I think like most of us, like, we always hear about Jesus, we hear about God, whether it's from family or whomever. And I definitely, you know, knew who God was. I just was not thinking about God, even though he was after me, you know.
Yeah.
I just was like, no, I'm good. Y'all got that. Like, y'all could do that type of situation.
Okay.
I wasn't like really disrespectful about it. It just wasn't for me. Although my mom was a believer, I just wasn't like, I was like, no, I'm good, you know, type of situation. But I respected what she believed, and I wasn't rude or anything about it. But what happened for me is somebody invited me to church, and the pastor got up and shared his testimony. He was a black guy, super cut, and I had never seen like such a strong, straight, and I'm just being honest, a strong, straight man of God like that. And I just was like, wow, like what is that? Like, his pants are baggy, you know what I'm saying? Like he you know, he was just a man. And I seen that, and he was married, and he had his kids in church, and he shared his affiliation with, you know, being in the gang and how that was for him. And it just ministered to me. It got to me. And, you know, God moved on my heart, you know what I mean? Because I had already been through so much up until that point. And God was like, now is the moment. Now is the time. And so for me, it just was such an influence because, you know, like I said, I was the same person, you know, as I was before Christ, after Christ, meaning that I just always was bold. I wasn't afraid to share my faith, just like I wasn't afraid to tell somebody to hop out the way, like if I felt they got too close to me type of situation. So what ended up happening was, I'm not going to hold you, it sparked a revival. My relationship with God really sparked a revival in the church that I had been blessed to be a part of, seeing a massive influx of people, because from that, you know, football teams were getting saved, basketball teams were getting saved, communities, like it was going crazy. Like, I'm not gonna hold you. And it was because, you know, me and, you know, some of the kids who were at the church, you know, had an argument on if Christians should listen to secular music.
Oh, wow.
And I was telling them, I was like, look, I don't know everything. I'm freshly saved, but all I know is we're trying to live right now. And the music that you're playing is making everybody in here struggle, if you feel what I'm saying. You're literally making all of us have a difficult time. And so I said, look, it went from that to, I'm like, just pull over. Like, we downtown. I'm like, just pull over. And they was like, pull over. I'm like, yeah, just pull over. And I hopped out the car, and there was this lady that was on the street. And I asked her that question. I'm like, hey, yo, do you think that Christians should listen to secular music? And I started telling her about that. I started telling her about the faith. And she was like, I don't know. I don't think that they should listen to that. But I'm really concerned about what you're talking about, because if I died right now, and I asked her, I said, if you die, like, where would you go? You feel like you would go to heaven, or you feel like you would go to hell? She said, I heard what you was talking about, and I heard about this love of Jesus, and I heard about that hell that you was talking about. and like, I don't want to go to hell, and I want to know who Jesus is. Will you lead me to Jesus?
Wow.
Definitely. So in that moment, I led her to the Lord. And then all of the rest of us literally looked at each other. I'm not going, no cap. We looked at each other and then looked at the downtown, and we took off running. And literally about 50 people just downtown got saved, like in a matter of like maybe an hour. And that's how it sparked the whole revival to football teams, basketball teams, church. Like, it was going crazy type of situation, you know? And so for me, you know, it's not about fear. I just believe what I believe. And when I believed in God, and when he chose me, I chose him. And it wasn't a thing like, oh, I'm nervous to share his name. Oh, like, because you got to understand, like, you know, when you grow up a certain way and you really be about that life, and you've seen certain things, and you just don't have no fear. And it just translates to your relationship with God. Like, that's why me and the Gospel Gangsters hit it off when we did that song, because we get it. You feel what I'm saying? And we went over together. Like, we from a similar background, a similar situation. And so, you know, I hope I answered the question a bit, but it's just about fearlessness and about understanding.
Wow.
The Bible says that the righteous are as bold as a lion. And so holding that up and not being afraid of it. And like, who cares if somebody rejects you because you said Jesus? Oh, well, at least they got an opportunity. They can't say they didn't hear. They can't say that, you know, when they meet the Lord face to face. So that's what it's about for me.